Hello, everybody. Can I jump in? Can you hear me?
Yeah.
All right. So, my idea basically is that if you bring a new idea or a new experience to a small group, you become the trendsetter to an extent, right?
Yeah.
And therefore, you don't lose that part of your identity as somebody who had done it before it was cool, right? And you just become a. Whereas if it goes mainstream on a bigger scale, you lose um, that part of your identity, I guess, as you become less unique, right?
Yeah, but why is being unique so valuable?
Because it adds to yourself. I guess you want people to remember you for something
Yeah, but why?
because it feeds your ego. Because you want people to, I don't know about you.
Yeah, so
Why do
how
you
does
want
that
people to
help the
know?
world? So let's say I want to keep exclusive my a series that only my closest 10 people can watch. Nobody else can watch it. I'm going to be a trendsetter among these 10 people. And then feel good about myself because I'm all unique and whatnot. But how is this a good thing?
I'm not saying it's a good thing. I'm just saying it's what it is. I mean, I can see it as a good thing uh if it gradually becomes mainstream and it's given a. So if you introduce something to a small group of people and then one person out of that group introduces it to another group of people, it has a lot of time for there's a lot of time for people to think about it and, I don't know, evaluate it and then see if it. But if something is just served as mainstream, then I think it's a different idea. I don't know. Somebody else should jump in as well.
Yoo-hoo.
Yeah, hi.
Hi.
Hello.
Long time listener, first time caller. No, it's me. Um, this love debate is highly centered on ego. No,
I don't know. Does it need to be?
I feel
For
like it
me,
is.
no. For you guys, apparently, yeah.
No, for me, if you look at back at my picture, I did not mention ego once. I just mentioned identity. What you consider you spreads. But consider this, if you could
Mm.
widen this so far that you encompass everything that is known, you would no longer identify as one physical thing. You would identify as everything. You would be one with the force, in a way. You would not
Okay,
need to apart from like a body that you are inside, you would not need to have an ego.
yeah. So if you don't need to have an ego, if it's like I don't know if you remember this, but at least for me, when I was in like the basic philosophy in high school, the definition they give you of love is I love me by love when I'm loving. That when you love the flower is I love me when I'm loving the flower. If this is the definition of love,
I'm sorry, but
why
this
do
does
you
not
care?
sound like a definition. What do I do with this? I love me when I'm loving the flower. When I don't understand how this defines love.
You wait for me to finish. That's what you do with it.
Go ahead.
Thank you. If the definition is I love me loving the flower, which means I love the way the flower makes me feel inside. What difference does it make if another 10 people um are loving the flower? Like if this doesn't change the essence of the flower. So let's put it in terms of fandom. Let's say if I'm a Potterhead and I was a Potterhead and there was like three other Potterheads, and this is actually a very funny example because Harry Potter didn't change in nature because there was like three of us or 100 of us, but now actually it's changing because J.K. Rowling is losing her fucking mind And there are two ways to approach this, which is you see Harry Potter as a frozen thing in time that ended when the last movie came out, or you can accompany J.K. Rowling gradually losing her mind, and then then it's ruining the franchising for you. And then yes, it makes difference the way other people interact with it, but with the specific case of fandoms, then the way other people are loving it changes it. But in another way, it doesn't matter how many people are loving it. Like, even like if I love someone and like a bajillion other people love someone, as long as the essence of this someone doesn't change, it doesn't matter. If if I love
Okay, but you're using
this,
words like, first of all, you haven't defined love apart from how something makes me feel.
have
And
you defined love?
I don't want to define love because I don't think it's productive for the discussion. But if if you jump,
Okay.
no, but I actually think I can work with your definition of how it makes me feel, because if it makes you feel good for something to exist and you enjoy the existence of something in relation to other things, then that doesn't necessarily have to do anything with your ego. You're just a viewer there. So if I
Mm,
can love a girl while
yeah.
she's with her boyfriend and
Mm,
not care that she's with her boyfriend, to be happy for her because she's getting everything she needs from her boyfriend, I would consider
mm,
that caring for a person, and that would make me feel good. And by your definition, that would be love. But
mm.
most of the
Okay.
time, when we
So
say I
let's.
love this girl, I want her to be in my room, closet, uh, basement, life. It's usually this sort of grabby, possessive type of I want it because as long as I have a monopoly on this thing, it's mine, and I feel good because I own it.
Okay. So let's make another example. I love someone who is in this server, and I am in a relationship with this person. Um, and okay, does this imply that I want them to be just mine? Maybe, maybe not. If this person lives far away from me, why do I need possession if I can't be with them physically anyway? Like, if I love someone here and I can only be with them once a month, why do I need them to not be with anyone else every other way? Like, why do I care if they went on a date yesterday? Why do I need them to be miserable, sexless, and loveless all the other days when I can't be with them?
I mean, I
Why
think you would
can't
have
they?
to ask a monogamous person it's why it matters to them what your hypothetical partner would be doing while you're not together. But I don't think it just comes down to when you're physically together with somebody. I think occupying somebody's time and getting attention from somebody far exceeds just physical time together.
I can
But
answer
okay,
the monogamous point of view.
Yeah.
yeah,
That's
that's so
very
random.
simple.
Hmm.
Now that's simple. Why does a monogamous person want the person to be theirs and theirs only? First of all, lack of trust on the person. Second of all, possession. This person is mine. Exactly. It is. In my point of view, it is ego only. It's I feel good because this person is my property.
So is
Not
this love?
no, that's not love. I don't love my ashtray. It's mine. It's here. I don't love it, but I
All
use
right.
it. Same with the person. If you view someone as a property, something that's yours for you to command, for you to order around, for you to control, that's not love. That's possession.
I agree. I completely agree. But most of what our relationships, everyday relationships, at least in, well, my cultural surrounding, be it online or offline, uh, consists of this type of possessive love, or what I would call selfish love. So I am considered to be hurting a relationship with somebody if I'm not making it exclusive.
You can be exclusive. You can do that if it is your choice and it is part of who you are and what you identify with. Monogamy isn't wrong. I don't think it's wrong. What I think is wrong is don't talk to this guy. Don't wear that.
But
Don't
that
let
is
other
monogamy.
people
Wait,
see
hold on.
you.
Okay,
That
let's
kind of
let's
behavior.
back up. Sorry, let's back up. Let's first define. When I say monogamy, I mean monoamory. So I mean like one-on-one romantic sexual relationship usually. So when I say monogamy, I don't just mean like marriage with one person. I mean that you have a partner and you want that partner to only do the kinky stuff with you mostly. So you have a bit of a monopoly on intimacy, and it goes vice versa, right?
Yeah, I don't think that's wrong if that's who you are and that person agrees to the terms. If two people are
Okay,
happy just with one another, that's
okay.
completely fine. What is not fine is treating someone like a fucking object, like a car that you just park somewhere and leave it
But this is
until you
basically
need it the
treating
next day.
somebody like an object, isn't it? Because if you, in your uh, hmm, relationship agreement, agree that you mustn't do these things with other people, you're creating a monopoly on something, and basically you're possessing an aspect of their life. It might be
Yeah, but if the
willing.
other person also agrees with that,
No,
that's not wrong.
it can be completely consensual, and I'm not saying it's wrong. I'm not saying that selfish love is wrong. I'm not dealing with right or wrong right now. I'm just noticing a difference in, or actually, I think this is closer as a relationship to your relationship with an ashtray than it is
Yeah,
with, or let's say a toothbrush. I'm okay with, like, I'm usually monogamous with my toothbrush. I don't like other people using it. And that's the way I'm mostly treated in relationships. Other people don't like when I'm being used by other people. So I think this is closer to what kind of relationship I have with objects than it is with the selfless love I'm talking about.
I think, I don't know, man. People are.
I'm sorry, Alpaca, I had you so lower. Can you repeat? I had you.
No, now I'm offended. Do you think that the reason why we because this is the default. So what I believe, in my opinion, is that the reason why this is the so much the default is because we just accept it as the standard contract. It's like when you go for a, let's say, when you marry, you just take the standard wedding agreement, marriage agreement, and that's the contract you sign when you go to the church or to the civil whatever, I don't remember the name in English, whatever. And you don't think about it too much. And I think when you start dating someone, you're like, well, we're gonna be boyfriend and girlfriend, and we're gonna sign a contract, and that's it. If each person says to the other person, okay, let's start dating, however, let's think of what works for the two of us. I think
Exactly.
if we did that in the beginning of each relationship, there wouldn't be that many traditional monogamous Catholic, Judaico-Christian relationships.
I agree that there probably would be if we changed our approach and become more critical towards the type of relationship we have. I agree that there would probably be a decrease in the default relationships because we would actually start thinking about what we're doing without just accepting it. But my issue is that just because something is consensual by both parties doesn't mean it's not selfish love. So by the difference that I laid out in how we treat, for example, a franchise that our friends start loving and a franchise that everybody starts loving right away, uh, I don't see why something loses value just because it's not exclusive. And the same
I
way,
think
in a monogamous relationship, I don't see why your relationship with somebody loses value because it's not all of a sudden not monogamous.
and I, sadly, I have to agree with you. I don't like agreeing with you, but in general, I think that the reason why we don't accept it is because we accept it as the standard contract. It's like when you go for a, let's say, when you marry, you just take the standard wedding agreement, marriage agreement, and that's the contract you sign when you go to the church or to the civil whatever, I don't remember the name in English, whatever. have to agree with you. I think this is the very Catholic notion that you, especially more for women, that women are undervalued the more they are touched by other people, or in this case, more men traditionally. And in the case of TV shows or fandom, let's say, to generalize, it's the notion of exclusivity and the undervaluing of empathy.
Those are the two conflicting ways of looking at something that you appreciate, or that you could say that you love. Because I agree that the Catholic, I think we can find a better term for it, but the patriocentric view on relationships treats women like a toothbrush. Like a woman should be clean and not used by many other people.
Yeah.
And I think it's nicely contrasted with how men are treated. Like a man is valued if he's experienced, and he gets experience by being with many other people. So one is kept pure and therefore retains value. The other one, well, to an extent, yes, also. Like, I think nowadays men can also be considered whores, more so than maybe in the past. But there's a different approach to how you love somebody. Now it's getting a bit muddled because nowadays as we go towards equality, we're treating each other in the same shitty toothbrush kind of way. I feel, but just because I can't say that if you have a consensually monoamorous relationship that you're somehow in the wrong. I mean, you didn't choose. You were just given the default settings for relationships, and now you feel like that's how you like it. But
nobody's in the wrong. If it's what works for you and it's consensual, nobody's in the wrong.
But just because it works for you, but just because you are part of a culture doesn't mean that you're not also responsible for spreading and further enforcing it. So
also, but if it works for two people,
wait.
If me and this person, it works for them.
Slavery works for those who own slaves. Marriage, patriocentric marriage, works for men. Like a very patriarchy works for almost half the population. Like, just because something works for a lot of people doesn't mean that we want it spread. We're not talking now.
Monogamy. Yeah. Monogamy by definition, monogamy is symmetrical. Monogamy itself, it's symmetrical.
Oh bullshit! Monogamy is not. No, how is monogamy symmetrical?
Because if I can't fuck anyone and you can't fuck anyone, how does this privilege on gender?
Well, do you know the whole religion of Islam and how they usually practice?
I don't know the whole religion of Islam.
No, I was being hyperbolic, but like polygamy, when practiced, tends to not be symmetrical.
I know, but we didn't mean this. We meant monogamy as we saw it here from Portugal to Serbia, let's say.
Yes, when you enforce monogamy and then sort of go towards being equal in the gender department, you're sort of going to see like symmetrical monogamy. Yes, I think that's like saying I have a broken arm, we should be equal, now you break your arm as well. Just because we're equally deep in shit, I don't think that we need to stay in shit just because we're both okay with the default.
Okay, but then you're I understand the analogy, but it's not a fair analogy. I completely understand, but you're talking from the point of a person who clearly doesn't believe in monogamy for themselves when you compare it to a broken
arm. No, I don't
arm.
believe monogamy is good for anybody as a default. So I understand
that's not a correct way to think, because there are people.
Yeah, that's your belief.
Thank you for giving me a correct and incorrect way to think.
Work for some people.
There are people, and experienced it, and I'm poly, but I've experienced being complete and whole and happy with one person, not looking at anyone else, not feeling attracted to anyone else.
So what I said was, I don't think monogamy is a better default relationship.
Just because it is default and it is implied that
Because it
everyone
is
should have it, doesn't mean
because
that everyone is unhappy with it. There
no,
are
I no,
people
that's not what
happy
I'm
and
saying.
fulfilled
But
with
that's
it.
not what I'm saying. I'm saying if you're just given a default and then this default is enforced to such an extent that you're considered a whore when you don't obey it, that's no longer just, oh, well, you can do this or you can do that. It's really hard
But
to get out of this default to
but
such
you're
an extent.
deflecting. You're
I'm
deflecting. What we are saying is that in a parallel universe, when where you can follow any formula, some people will fall into monogamy because they just want to.
I know, and I'm not arguing with that. I'm saying, yes, of course, there can be a situation where your ideal relationship ends up also being monogamous in this way, that you're exclusive with a partner that completely fulfills you. It's theoretically possible. I just don't think that today's society is reflective of how often that would happen if it weren't the default state. And therefore, I don't think monogamy or monoamory, or what I'm just gonna call it monogamy from now on, not necessarily referring to marriage. But I don't think that this default is doing us any favors. In fact, I would argue that it does us more harm than if the opposite were the default.
Any definition that shames the other definitions is harmful.
I'm not
In
shaming a
my
definition.
view.
I'm shaming. I'm criticizing
But I'm not
societal
talking about
pressure.
you. I'm saying that if the monogamy shames the other formulas of living, it's shameful.
It does. Nowadays,
Yes,
it
it's what I'm
does.
agreeing with you.
Okay, well, Succubus, do
I'm
you
agreeing with
like
you.
Succubus? You seem to not have agreed with me regarding something. Did I make myself clear enough now that we can agree on this?
I'm sorry. I'm working and I was
Okay, so generally,
reviewing something.
so
I
let
zoned
me
out for a bit.
let
Sorry.
me just steelman my position. I understand that today, nowadays, where the monoamorous approach is the default and is being culturally enforced, some people will feel completely comfortable being in exclusive relationships, in this what I would call selfish love type of relationships. And I do understand that they might even feel extremely uncomfortable if this default were to suddenly disappear. And I'm not saying that it's right just because I personally am not of this default to suddenly enforce the opposite onto those people. I don't want to suddenly discriminate monogamous couples. What I do want to discriminate is the idea that this default is good and that selfish love is true love. That otherwise, if I'm a girl and I'm with a guy, but I'm also with other guys, if these other guys by default think that my love for them is lesser because I also share it with other people, then I have a problem with that. This sentence sort of fell apart midway, but I think you get what I mean. So that's what I have a problem with. The idea that love is a resource that can be depleted instead of spread. So my ideal love would be this little guy being born, this little thing being born, and then
Person.
to be fair, when I say guy, I usually don't mean uh, in a gendered way. So if this is your identity, what you identify with, from the moment you're born and throughout your life, you just encompass everything. You connect with things. You learn about Martin Parr and his photography. You start loving his ugly photography. You start loving the shitty movies. You start loving Harry Potter, The Room, Lord of the Rings. It's okay. We don't need to identify with, base our identity on things we empathize with and that we identify with. And then we just one day become one, just a hive of people who love each other. But that cannot work. That cannot work if I'm being told that the default is sort of uh, being hurt and that I'm hurting love by sharing it. That's my problem with monogamy.